On April 26th of 2009, police were called to the scene of a local Target where something awful just happened. A young mother was fatally shot outside of her car with her toddler inside. Witnesses described seeing a short man with a mustache and weird poofy hair walking calmly away from the scene. This is the sinister case of Joanna Hayes. Hello, friend, and welcome to High Time Crime. My name's Joel, and on here I specialize in true crime and also dog walking. I feel like this is just my calling, you know? But anyways, today we're going over the case of Joanna Hayes and what she did to her ex-daughter-in-law. You're going to learn about a twisted woman who was willing to do anything to get back at someone who didn't deserve it. For our story, we're visiting Snellville, Georgia, a city that's in Gwinnett County, and in 2009 had a population of 20,271. Founded in August of 1879 by Thomas Snell and James Sawyer, I can imagine it's a bit different from then. If you're in the area, well, there's a good amount of things to do, so hopefully boredom doesn't come your way. You could go to Briscoe Park and get some fresh air and connect with nature. You could take a trip on down to the Gwinnett History Museum and learn all about the region's history. If you want to go bowling, play some arcade games, laser tag, or bumper cars, well, you could go to Stars and Strikes for that. This city pretty much has it all, but unfortunately, none of those delightful options are the reason as to why we're in Snellville today. Heather Suzanne Allen Strube was born on April 20th of 1984 to Henry H. Buddy Allen III and Mary McKinnon. She had two brothers and was a kind-hearted, compassionate girl. She attended Shiloh High School, and it was here that she met her high school sweetheart and future ex-husband, Stephen Strube. We'll get into who he is momentarily. After graduating from high school, Heather went to Auburn University and Perimeter College, where she was earning a business degree. In 2007, Heather had gotten married to Stephen, and this same year, they had a son together named Carson after Heather dealt with a problematic pregnancy. She was constantly getting sick, and this really set a toll on her and the marriage. It wasn't long before the two of them would get divorced because of Stephen's inability to remain faithful. Heather was considered to be a stickler for things being right by her father. She always wanted to make sure everything was perfect. A friend said that she was a special kind of person, one that was truly selfless and someone who embodied the words joy, peace, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Heather was working at a family-owned flower shop in Porterdale, and both Stephen and his mother Joanna hung around the shop and at times helped out. Things appeared to be going good, but things happening behind the scenes were about to cause problems to arise. Stephen Strube, Heather's husband or ex-husband, wasn't exactly the greatest partner. While not too much is known about his childhood, we do know that in 2007, he was convicted for a charge brought against him by one of his best friends for making terroristic threats. Not sure what exactly those were. When Stephen and Heather first began dating, his mother Joanna hated Heather and tried to forbid Stephen from dating her. Obviously, that didn't happen, and so the resentment in Joanna grew as time passed. But in 2007, while Heather was pregnant, is believed to be the time when Stephen started to have an affair. He told many people that he was never married to Heather and that she was just an ex-girlfriend who he had a child with. People considered Stephen to be a very good liar and very cool and calm about it, that he got this attribute from his mother. Stephen and Heather were going to marriage counseling during all of this too, and it wasn't long before Heather would find out about the affair. This devastated her as she really loved Stephen, but she knew what she had to do. Heather filed for a divorce and decided to move on with her life, figuring that she has a son that she has to take care of with or without Steven. She was terrified of him though, and his family, especially his mother, Joanna. One of Heather's friends came out and said that Steven and his family were acting crazy during the divorce, making things more complicated. Heather also began dating a guy named Michael around this time, and Michael was a great person who really loved her. So originally, Heather owned a flower shop called Blooms, but she had to close it and went to go work for her mother Mary at her flower shop because she feared she was going to be financially ruined from the divorce. Heather started taking her son to work every day, and 2 times out of the month, Steven was allowed to see him. They would meet up at a Target parking lot, specifically located in Snellville. It wouldn't be long before this meeting spot would become the crime scene of something absolutely awful: murder. On April 26th of 2009, in broad daylight at about 6 p.m., 25-year-old Heather and Steven were meeting so that way Heather could pick up Carson. Steven handed Carson over to Heather and then left in his vehicle. While Heather was putting Carson into his car seat, she was approached by an unknown person wearing a wig and a mustache, some khakis, and a button-up shirt. An argument ensued. As it appeared, the two knew each other, and things got way more heated. Heather attempted to get into her vehicle and started yelling out for help. All of a sudden, this unknown person pulled out a .38 caliber handgun from a bag, and, well, you know the rest. This person then calmly walked away while witnesses were shocked about what just happened. The police were called, but by the time they got there, the assailant was gone, a young, vibrant mother was deceased, and confusion was in the air. Why on earth would anyone want such a nice person gone? Soon, you're going to hear about someone who really thought of Heather in an awful manner, a manner that doesn't accurately describe her character. The police immediately began an investigation and started this by reviewing surveillance footage. The camera that was used was old and out of date, and so the video was grainy and blurry, and it also turned at random times, capturing different angles, but they were going to have to make do with what they had. The detectives could see the slight interaction between Heather and Steven, and then Steven leaving. They were also able to see a person walking to Heather's car moments after, but because the camera was turning at this time, it didn't capture the event. The investigators also talked to witnesses, and a sketch was drawn of what people believed the assailant looked like. They had a wig and a mustache, but it was clearly a disguise. Investigators also looked into Heather's vehicle, and her wallet was still there, so robbery was out of the question. They knew that this was planned out, that whoever wanted Heather dead was intending to make it happen. The police decided to take a trip to Steven's house and inform him about what occurred to Heather, and he was genuinely shocked. He had no idea who wanted to hurt her that badly and was very surprised something like this happened. Steven told the police that he went and dropped Carson off to Heather and they were okay. He then left, went to a car wash, and then afterwards went to his new girlfriend's house. The police confirmed his alibi and they determined that he was telling the truth. A witness that came out after the police had asked people to come forward if they knew anything was the break in the case that they needed. A man that was staying in a hotel close to the Target had saw a person in a white Ford F-150 either taking pictures of the store or looking at it with binoculars. This person was wearing a wig and a mustache. A person that was somewhat close, but not quite to Heather, owned a white Ford F-150. Her name was Joanna Hayes, Steven's mother. The police quickly obtained a search warrant for the truck, and inside they found wig fibers and gunshot residue on the steering wheel and dashboard. They knew they had their culprit. Investigators went and picked up Joanna and brought her in for questioning, but she denied everything. She said that she was nowhere near Target and said that she drove her pickup truck between 5:15 p.m. and 5:30 p.m. to visit her parents. Then she said that as she was close to their house, she stopped by a Wendy's and grabbed a drink, which she had the receipt for, conveniently. Joanna also started to go on a little tangent about Heather and how she wasn't a good parent, that she inherited poor parenting skills from her own mother, and she wasn't a good parent morally, that she wasn't good enough to raise her grandchild, claiming that Heather would leave Carson in dirty diapers with dirt underneath his fingernails. Joanna also stated that she knew where Heather and Stephen exchanged Carson at. The police knew something was up, and while looking at the receipt a little closer, realized it said 7:19 p.m. Knowing that the shooting occurred around 6 p.m., they decided to investigate this. An officer wanted to see exactly how long it would take to drive from the parking lot to Wendy's. They left at 6 p.m., and it took 1 hour and 20 minutes, with them arriving at 7:20 p.m. With this in mind, and the evidence investigators already found, they were obviously closing in on their suspect. The police decided to bring Stephen back in for some more questioning and decided to show him the footage they obtained. After watching it, he began to shake and looked to be in disbelief because he knew who it was. It was his mother. Joanne had a certain way of walking that was pretty distinctive. She was stiff-legged and had a very wide stride. Several people had stated this. About a year before the shooting happened, Joanna was working with a friend, and she told this friend her thoughts about how to commit a murder and get away with it. Joanna said that an alibi could be established by using a credit card at the right time at a place that's far away from the crime scene. She said that she could buy a handgun from one of the workers at a construction site that she worked at and then destroy it by using a grinder or plasma torch, throwing whoever's remains into a lake. Joanna had a home workshop, and she did have grinders and a plasma torch. She also stated that if she were to ever do anything like that, she wouldn't use her minivan to commit the crime because it was too noticeable of a color, or her Dodge pickup truck because it had a large dent in the rear, but she would use her white Ford F-150 because it's just so common. So how long she was thinking of doing that, we don't know. But in December of 2009, Joanna was arrested and charged with murder. While in jail awaiting her trial, she told a fellow inmate some very interesting things. She said that she believed Heather was a bad mother with no mothering skills. Joanna said that it made her sick to think of Heather with Carson and said that she killed Heather by shooting her in the front of the head. Joanna had asked a different inmate if they heard about the shooting of Heather and told them that that's why she's incarcerated. She also told the inmate that she did this shooting and that Heather was going to try to keep sole custody of Carson, and that would tear the family apart. That it was against God's way of the family, and now that Heather was dead, they could finally be a family. Wow. This woman was insane. But Joanna's trial was long and tedious. She tried to plead not guilty, but it was obvious that she was responsible. A testimony was given that in 1991, while going through a divorce with Stephen Strube Sr., Stephen's father, Joanna took a .38 caliber revolver that she owned and placed it against Stephen Sr.'s head. And the testimony also said that she carried this weapon every day. It was found out that Heather was shot with a .38 caliber revolver, but there was no murder weapon ever found, and Joanna's gun was never located. With all this evidence and testimonies that were given, on May 27th of 2011, the jury found Joanna Hayes guilty of malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, being sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 30 years when she's 77 years old. Joanna said that she's innocent of this and that she's never harmed anyone in her entire life, and that she loved Heather just as much as anyone else. Obviously, that wasn't true. During the trial, a tape recording was played of Stephen asking Joanna why she did it, and that's a great question. Why did she do it? Prison will be rotting her away for the rest of her life, and so at least there's that. Also, Stephen came to Joanna's defense, claiming that the police manipulated him into saying that it was her. Yeah, okay, Stephen. Heather was a great, hardworking mother who was willing to do anything for those she loved, especially her child. She was considered to have the most beautiful soul anyone could ever know, and she was generous, kind, gentle, intuitive, and understanding. Heather's missed greatly by all of those closest to her, and I really hope that her family is able to find some closure. After she passed away, she left behind Carson, and her parents Henry and Mary took over that responsibility. Her mother Mary, however, passed away in 2014 due to surgery complications, but Henry is taking care of Carson and doing a dang fine job. I read that Carson is now a teenager and taller than Henry, and that he's doing great physically and spiritually. It's really good and makes me happy to know. Rest in peace, Heather Suzanne Allen Strube. But anyways, thank you for watching this episode of High Time Crime. If true crime is your thing, then please subscribe and hit the like button because that's all we do. I also have a second account with my brother named Horrifying, where we tell stories about everything paranormal. This includes true crime, mysteries, and things that are just downright spooky. I'd greatly appreciate if you subscribe to that too. But I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care, friend.